You ever find yourself sticking with something you know, even when there's a way better option right in front of you? It's that strange, irrational comfort we get from the familiar. It's this quiet force that steers our decisions more than we probably want to admit. So, what is going on in our heads? Let's dig in. I mean, seriously, think about it. That clunky old program on your laptop, or maybe that weird, inefficient process at work you just can't let go of. We know there are better, faster, and smarter ways to do things, but so often we just stick to the same old path. Why do we do that? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack here. So, this powerful little habit, it actually has a name: status quo bias. You can think of it like a default setting in our brains that just prefers things to stay the same. Any change from that baseline, even if it's a good one, our brain literally flags as a potential loss. And once you start looking for it, you see this thing everywhere. It's why we're so reluctant to adopt new software. It's why big companies get stuck in old, outdated structures. And it's why teams will cling to familiar habits that just don't work anymore. It's like a quiet but really powerful handbrake on progress. Okay, so to really get why this happens, we have to go way back. We have to look deep into our own programming. Because this isn't some modern flaw in our thinking. It's actually an ancient feature, a piece of survival software that was absolutely critical for our ancestors. So, what does that really mean? It means our brains are fundamentally wired for efficiency. They evolved to take mental shortcuts, not because they're lazy, but for pure survival. In a world full of danger and unknowns, the quickest path was almost always the safest one. And you know what? Sticking with the familiar was a brilliant evolutionary strategy. It saved a ton of mental energy. I mean, analyzing new stuff is hard work. It helped our ancestors avoid hidden dangers. Who knows what's down that new path? Could be a predator. Our brain just loves this predictability. It rewards us with a sense of security and comfort for sticking to what's already worked. Okay, so here's the catch. That ancient alarm system, it can seriously misfire in our modern world. That new piece of software isn't a saber-toothed tiger, right? But our brain can still react as if it is, sparking this irrational, gut-level resistance to change. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting. Our brains don't just passively prefer the status quo, they actively work to justify it. They build this powerful internal case for why the old way is the best way. The philosopher Francis Bacon actually nailed this almost 400 years ago. He said that once we decide we like something, say our current way of doing things, our mind becomes this kind of biased lawyer. It seeks out every single piece of evidence to prove we're right, and it conveniently ignores anything that might prove us wrong. And what's really wild is that this bias works on two different levels. You've got the motivated kind, which is when we defend beliefs we're really emotionally attached to, but it also works in an unmotivated way, where our thinking gets skewed even when we have no personal stake in the outcome at all. It's just how we're wired. This shows you just how deep this bias runs. You can literally give two people with opposite views the exact same report, and both of them can walk away more convinced than ever that their original opinion was right all along. Our minds are built to reinforce our worldview, not to challenge it. So, what happens when this cozy preference for the familiar goes wrong? Well, the consequences can be huge. Sometimes they can even be catastrophic. I think the most classic textbook example of status quo bias has to be the story of Kodak. For decades, they weren't just a company. They were an absolute giant. The name Kodak was basically photography itself. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. Kodak invented the first digital camera. They had the technology, they had a $20 billion war chest, they had every advantage you could possibly imagine. But they were so committed to their familiar, comfortable, and very profitable film business that they just couldn't bring themselves to embrace the very future they had created. Kodak's story is this powerful warning from the past about the real danger of clinging to comfort. And it's so important because we are seeing the exact same pattern of resistance play out right now with one of the most transformative technologies of our lifetime: artificial intelligence. Let's put a number on this modern resistance: 62%. What do you think that number represents? That's the percentage of working adults in the US who admit they actively avoid using AI. And the main reason isn't some deep, complex ethical stance. For most, it's simply because the technology is unfamiliar and they don't really get how it works. And this avoidance, it's fueled by some really powerful emotions. Look at this data. Over half of people feel stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid when they think about how fast AI is developing. That fear of the unknown is a really potent force. The consequences of this hesitation are just enormous. For companies, it completely stifles innovation and limits their growth. But for us, as individuals, it can box in our careers and put us at risk of being left behind in a world that is changing very, very quickly. So, if this bias is so deeply programmed into our brains, what in the world can we do about it? How do we find a path forward? While the journey doesn't start with trying to just eliminate the bias, that's pretty much impossible. It starts with awareness. Just knowing that these mental shortcuts exist gives you the power to pause, to question them, and to start making more conscious choices. And a really practical way to start is by running what you could call tiny experiments. Don't try to change everything at once. No. Just pick one small, familiar habit, tweak it just a little bit, and see what happens for, say, a week or a month. Think about the outcome, and then decide if it's a change that's actually worth keeping. The real takeaway here is that this approach makes change feel manageable. It lowers the stakes. It creates this safe space where you can feel small, learn really quickly from what actually happens, and then adapt your approach one step at a time. And that brings us to our final thought. As we wrap up, I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. What comfortable habit, what familiar process, or what long-held belief in your own life might be the very thing that's preventing you from taking your next great leap forward?